So you may have seen recently that Google just rolled out the biggest update in the history of sales, in my opinion, limiting not only the total number of emails that an organization can send, but also for you as an individual seller, if you're sending emails that are marked as spam too often, your account can get completely shut down. So all that to say, and we'll definitely go into it further today, it has never been more important to learn how to master selling on LinkedIn. And it's why not only am I going to share my perspective today, but I've brought on an entrepreneur who has built a LinkedIn messaging tool himself and has studied this space relentlessly for the last 2 years. We're gonna dive into not only what the new regulations from Gmail and all of these different potential ways your account can get shut down for email, but also really diving into what has made Michael very successful on LinkedIn as a frontline seller himself, while also building Outreach AI on the side. This is a very, very tactical first conversation. You know, if you've watched this channel for a long time, I don't really randomly promote products. I brought Michael on because, again, he is an entrepreneur that has studied this space for well over 2 years. So there is a link in the description to what Michael is building, but nonetheless, this is highly, highly tactical. And if you're a seller looking to improve your LinkedIn game in 2024, I know you're gonna get a lot out of our conversation today.
Michael, glad we can connect again, and obviously really excited to have you on. You've been in this space studying it and building for 2 years on LinkedIn, looking at different outreach approaches. And I know maybe as a starting point for everyone watching, one thing you really deep dove on recently is the upcoming regulations with Google and Yahoo changing their spam rules, their outbound email rules. Maybe set the stage as to even what those are and why you think LinkedIn messaging and outreach is becoming that much more important.
Yeah. Good to see you again, Eric. Thanks for the time. Yeah, I'd say it's more pertinent, the point that you just made, like LinkedIn outreach than ever. Obviously, in 12 days, Google and Yahoo, they're implementing some changes. I think from a high level, it's for bulk email senders. That's for each domain. So if you work at a bigger company where there's a lot of outreach happening, not just your sales team, but other divisions of the company, this could affect you. And this is something around like 5,000 emails or more per day. Google and Yahoo are now tightening a bit of the parameters, meaning they've increased, they set a standard on the percentage for spam rates. So if you're above that, if your receiver is marking your emails as spam more often than, I think it's like 0.3%, then your emails will be funneled to spam quicker. They've also made it easier for the receiver to have like one-click unsubscribe links. It was nice in the past because you used to be able to click unsubscribe and it would take them to a new page. And if that didn't load, like they would never be able to unsubscribe. And then there's just some technical verbiage around how they've tightened like the authentication for the domain, I think at a very high level. So all of that to be said, Google and Yahoo, they're obviously tightening a bit of the parameters around the outreach for email. And I think insert, LinkedIn and social selling, it's even more important. And it's been something that I've been practicing for the last couple of years. That's been great return for me.
Yeah, totally. And I know, so just summarizing too, to make sure I understand it correctly, if your entire company, so at higherlevels.com sends more than 5,000 emails, we are getting shut down. Also, if you get marked as spam, you said more than 0.3%, right?
Yeah, 0.3%. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. So when I first read it, I was like, oh, okay, like who's sending, 5,000 emails per day? It's more about the domain piece, like the @company.com piece that you have to think about, right? And shutting down, I mean, I think they're just tightening. Like, I think there might be some like warnings out there. And I think if you continue to, like any tool, you continue to abuse the tool, like, I think maybe then like the next step will be taken, but it's not exactly clear. And I think that will be probably drawn out in the next 12 days. And then we'll see who the first offender is.
Yeah, for sure. And I know maybe transitioning that to now, I think LinkedIn 100% is going to be more important than ever. Obviously, it's a place where you're not only messaging and doing your day-to-day sales efforts there, but also building a brand. Maybe let's talk more on the sales side specifically in terms of the things you've seen maybe over the last 2 years when it comes to LinkedIn outreach. Like if you're either a brand new SDR or you get your new territory this year and you're starting to hit LinkedIn and approach customers, maybe a couple of the first things that you do or things you keep in mind.
Yeah. So that's a great question. Like the first thing that I do is I try to look at what the first impression is for that customer. So, AKA like what your profile page looks like, starting from like your profile picture to the first thing that says like kind of under your tagline to the landing page. So the really cool thing about LinkedIn is that it's kind of like your own like micro business, right? It's your own brand in the sense that as you're connecting with your ICP, your customer profile, and they're visiting your page, like they're getting a glimpse as to who Eric, who Michael is pretty quickly, right? And there's obviously different things that LinkedIn has there, like the recommendations, your bio, the feature, and the things that I just mentioned, that I think if done well, in my opinion, is just being digestible and really simple to how you help, having a clean profile picture and all that, it helps. It helps tremendously, like build that first impression much better than like digital messaging would, right? Like an email. So yeah, I think that the value that LinkedIn is bringing now is like another channel, and obviously it's been around, but as another channel in your outreach, it's amazingly helpful and drawing that connection to that person, and they actually see your face and so forth.
No, these are all great points. And I know one of the things that I find is different with email than LinkedIn is, don't get me wrong, I've had some success with LinkedIn, but also if people don't typically engage with me right away, it's really difficult, unlike email, where traditionally I can sequence it or do all these different things, right? It's easier for me to follow up on email than it is LinkedIn. But I know you've also implemented multi-step workflows on LinkedIn where you connect with them like you talked about, you send them a quick thanks for connecting. But if you don't get a response from there, you continue to message them. So I'd love to pick into that strategy a little bit more. Maybe walk us through the average, like if you've got a really highly desired persona, you connect with them on LinkedIn. If they don't respond after that first message that we just talked about, what are you doing from there to still try and get their attention?
Yeah, I think they say, right, it takes like 7 or 8 touches to really get like that first meeting response from the ideal, customer that you're targeting. And yeah, so that's kind of my mindset, right? Like I think of 7 to 8 ways that I can quote unquote, contact or action their profile on LinkedIn. That's like my number one thing that I think about. Like I mentioned on the messaging piece, like I keep it still low pressure, right? And if they don't answer me on the first outreach, like I usually wait like a day or two just to like, and again, another low pressure message. Like first one might be like, hey, thanks so much for connecting. Most people, like I said, get a response there. If you do not, like a day or two later, I then say like, always great to connect with fellow professionals, short and sweet. Could even be like was formerly like a happy 2024, right? So again, low pressure. Like while I'm doing that though, in parallel, I'm interacting with their profile. So I'm following, I'm maybe endorsing a skill that I see based on, what they're talking about on their posts. I'm also engaging with their posts, commenting, and I'm liking those posts. And so I'm doing everything that I can within the realm of LinkedIn and keeping a good cadence, right? And while you're doing that, you obviously have other other customers that you're targeting. So, build out that sequencing, right? And think about it how you would like to be, receive outreach. And if you don't know, somebody at your company probably does and what's worked for them. And I would follow that method at first and mold your own style. And then otherwise, I would say put yourself in their shoes and think about what you'd like. But yeah, I tend to leverage the other functionality that I can on LinkedIn with the mindset of, one, not being annoying, but always being top of mind for them. And so in the commenting, it's not like, hey, Eric, thanks. Like, thanks for sharing. Like, I try to actually add value there, right? I know we've heard that before. So I would say continue to do that.
No, it's great insight. And also calling out for reference, I know you've got some templates on your platform, outreachai.co, in the description. So just calling that out if folks want to check that out. And I know restating as well, I think one of the things I probably don't do well enough is also engaging with their posts and truly trying to actually ask meaningful questions. I actually got in front of a CTO this past year by doing that. He was posting a lot about some of their digital initiatives. I asked him a very specific question after reading, a 500-page article, and we literally got a meeting out of it because I had done that. So I definitely echo that, and just a real world example there that I need to do more of this year, especially. Yeah. But no, this is really great insights. And I know one of the things you're doing in particular that I would love to tap into is building a brand on LinkedIn. And I know something we talk a lot about offline, certainly with what you're building with Outreach AI, what we're building here on the YouTube, certainly looking to have leverage in your career. I think a lot of people maybe early in their career, or certainly right now when the economy is not super great, are kind of worried about what happens if I fail. And I know, you've had a lot of experience now kind of building your brand on LinkedIn, building something on the side. Could you speak to how you might go about building your brand on LinkedIn and also kind of the psychology behind it, right? Because I think the more we talk about it, we get into like, aside from how to do it, like the emotional aspect of that. But wide open question. Hopefully that's not too much, but I'll hand it to you for your thoughts. So
yeah, it's a really awesome question. And I know there's a lot of information out on this. So I like to keep things pretty simple, Eric. That's just how my mind works. Like, so I've always read like personal branding on LinkedIn, right? It's just a start. And that I have to say, like, that's the biggest message is obviously just starting, like share an experience that you've dealt with in that day just on your LinkedIn. And it's amazing the momentum that creates in your mind because you're like, you've started, maybe you get some interactions, maybe you don't, but then continue that and build that muscle or that discipline rather, and just continue to keep posting, right? I think the really cool thing about Outreach AI is, like you mentioned, leverage and the psychology behind it. The reason why I'm really passionate about Outreach AI and what we can do is obviously help grow the network and scale it, but also create leverage for people that are, as I work in staffing and talk to a lot of professionals, there's a lot of like mental turbulence around what am I going to do next? Or I don't know what this company is going to do. I'm hitting quota, I'm not, or I want to change careers. Like, what do? Recruiter's not getting back to me. So I think LinkedIn and using Outreach AI to automate those actions for you on LinkedIn is a way for you to build that branding. Like you can set a lot of the actions and sequences on Outreach AI and just let it go for you. It'll run, on autopilot for you on LinkedIn. And so that's kind of what I would say is just starting, building that brand. And then of course, like engaging with people that either you are in your ICP, right? Or that you maybe inspired to be like, right? It's a following, or it's maybe where you want to take your career, or you have some sort of interest. Like start connecting with those people, engaging, seeing what their day-to-day looks like. And, it doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands of followers. Like whether you have 500 followers to 2,000, I think I'm at 2,700 followers on LinkedIn. And I've had some really amazing like one-on-ones with people in the industry, outside the industry, what's going on, what's working for them. And so that alone has been immensely helpful. And I've, used Outreach AI to help me a lot with that streamlining.
So could you speak to as well, obviously when I first started doing YouTube, it's very awkward. And like, I'm still conscious of not doing anything that would piss anyone off or make me look bad. But I know LinkedIn as well. My opinion, at least, there's a lot of trash out there. And I'm sure you've seen some yourself. So how do you get over that mental block of just like being worried about posting, worried about what other people think? I'm sure there's tons of things. I'd love to get your perspective on that as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, how do you break through the noise, right? Usually it's just like looking in the mirror, Eric, and realizing like, okay, I'm overthinking this. Like what was something that kept occurring today, this week, a problem that I faced at the desk level, as tactical or as simple as it sounds, that I can just share. And I think about these things daily because, it's nice to post consistently. For me, it was all about posting consistently because I just needed to get outside. That helped with that mental block that I was having and overthinking and kind of that outreach paralysis. So I would think about it every day. Like, what is the main problem and what am I seeing from my peers, or, and how does it relate to the industry? Like right now it's Q1, like you could put a picture of an ocean and be like, anyone else feel like they're in an ocean right now? And we gotta swim and find opportunity. Like people relate to that stuff. And it's obviously uncomfortable, but I think the more that you do it and take the action and have fun with it, right? As long as you're like remaining professional, be authentic, be true, and just post and keep posting. And I think then you'll see the engagement and comment. I will say one big tip that I've learned is as you're commenting in somebody's posts and you start having some dialogue there, that could be your next post. So as you're commenting in their post and you're having some dialogue, like take that dialogue and that could be your post for the next day. So if you're having trouble with figuring out what to post about, I think look at other people engage in the comments and then take your dialogue and create a post from there.
I know one of the things we were also talking about too is you work in staffing. You have obviously talked to a lot of people that are breaking into tech sales, obviously something we do here as well. If you're breaking into tech sales this year as well, I'm curious, you've been in the position of kind of helping people break in and also kind of being a recruiter in that situation, deciding if they would get moved on or recommended, things of that nature. How would you use LinkedIn to make a very strong first impression, especially this year when I would imagine inboxes are getting flooded more than ever?
Yeah, absolutely. That's another huge plus, I think, for LinkedIn, right? All the thank you notes, the follow-up, like it can be done. The prep work too before your interview, right? A lot of it's like we're sending people LinkedIn profiles of who they're going to be having the interview with, right? So they can study, read about that person, profiles of people that have done well, right? So you can now leverage people that have done well in interviews and you can see those profiles to study. And then you can kind of replicate and then mold to your own style to help with you, like help prep right? So some of the questions that are being asked, a lot of that prep work can be done up front, just doing it, some research on LinkedIn. And then it's really cool is like you can connect with them, and then you have even more functionality, or like from a LinkedIn perspective of how you can interact with that hiring manager. So I'm by no means saying it's a way for you to go around recruiters, but do both. Like connect with the recruiter, connect with the hiring manager, build a relationship, and let them see your page too. So it's their first impression onto you as well. You have recommendations on there at the bottom of your profile. Like, awesome, great. Yeah, and I think so. Just really lean into what LinkedIn can bring, and kind of have fun with it. Like, stay genuine, stay authentic, and lean into it. And I think, yeah, what you said about the prep part too, like that's huge, Eric. Like I have to say, like there's tips and tricks of how to use LinkedIn and building out the ICP list. I will say, like when I first started on LinkedIn, I kind of just took my call list that I had and tried to take that list onto LinkedIn. And I realized, well, one, they're not even active, So it's really refining like your LinkedIn prospecting list to a T. And there's like, you can do talks about in your filtering that'll show that they're in creator mode, more likely to have or be active on LinkedIn. So tips like that are really helpful.
And I know one thing, there's two parts of this. One, I know we were also talking about maybe you're not in a position to have LinkedIn Sales Navigator or like premium LinkedIn. How would you go about, especially in the situation that you're breaking in and you don't have, 100 connections a day or a week or whatever the limit is now on LinkedIn? How do you maximize that? And maybe we'll start there and I have a follow-up question.
Yeah. Awesome question. So, LinkedIn, kind of like Google and Yahoo, they're also tightening it up a bit as well, right? They want to push people towards Sales Navigator. So the functionality that you have on LinkedIn, if you're just using the basic plan, for those of you that have seen this, it's pretty limited. You can only send like probably 3 connections a day, right? And so I would say if you're on the basic plan, still do that. Send the amount of connection requests that you can send daily, and then nurture the existing list that you have. So all the followers, all the connections you have, 100, 200, into the thousands, like all of those matter. Like see who you can engage with, interact with them to continue to grow your network. And what I mean by engage and interact with them, like direct message them, check in with them, see how things are going, build that relationship, but also comment and like their posts. You'll start seeing that people will start connecting with you too. So it kind of flips the script. Although that LinkedIn caps you at 3, you can now start interacting and engaging with the customer profile, and they'll start connecting with you too. So it's one way to kind of beat the system.
And in terms of messaging too, like if I'm trying to get noticed by a manager, is there anything that you've seen in the past that has particularly stood out to you, or something that you would do if you were in that situation?
Yeah, I would say short and sweet, like 5 sentences or less of just value as to what you can bring to the team in 30 days. So it's really clear, concise messaging as to how you can help this manager in 30 days. And I say 30 days because it's what they want to know as soon as you start, how quickly you can ramp. That's typically what managers are thinking about. Of course, they're thinking about 60, 90, and so forth. But again, you only have such an impression and window that you can put on paper to get their attention. And I think that's what I'd focus on. And I say 5 sentences or less because if it's a little over that, it's fine. But I think that's the goal of just being clear, concise, because they're going to quickly read it. So these could be bullets, like read the position, digest it, put yourself in their shoes, and then put that on paper or in the message.
No, this perspective has been really great. Like I certainly do a fair amount on LinkedIn. However, I think talking to you, I know not only are you doing this day to day in your current role, but also obviously building Outreach AI, really helping people maximize what they're doing on LinkedIn. And especially with the updates this year, more important than ever. Maybe as an ending point, again, a reminder to everyone that a link to what Michael is building at outreachai.co is in the description. But I'd also give you a chance here to kind of talk more about it, share why you think it's going to be really valuable and helpful for everyone using LinkedIn this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks so much for the time, Eric. Yeah, I think, again, just with everything going on, right? I think at the sales level, right, we have a lot of things, like a huge cycle and a lot of things to do daily. And I think if you just look at just pure outreach, there's a couple different channels that we can take, and calling and emailing and now social selling. Well, that also takes a lot of time. And so what Outreach AI solves is kind of the LinkedIn side of it for you. We're a LinkedIn lead generation platform, and we help with obviously getting you more engaged leads, figuring out who from your network could be potential customers. Because at the end of the day, We're trying to help sales organizations generate revenue. And I think the number one thing is figure out a very strong customer profile list that's active on LinkedIn, and then be pretty specific with your messaging on how you kind of target that and action that group of people. So narrow it down to 20 to 25 people a day, wherever the parameters are of LinkedIn based on your membership, and take those actions every day to kind of move the needle. And the great thing about Outreach AI is like you can create a lead list, you can build out a campaign, you can create all the sequencing, click start, watch your analytics work, just check in and see how it's performing. And hopefully it can be kind of your, co-pilot as you're doing that omni-channel approach. So
yeah, I think especially like I didn't even know tools like this existed. I didn't even know you could sequence on LinkedIn, do these, not only just add someone and send them a message automatically, but then from there, follow up. There's a lot of other cool capabilities. And again, I don't bring people on to just push random products. I really wanted to bring Michael on, not just because of the product today, but also again, because he's been trying to solve this problem space for the last 2 years. So really great insights, Michael, always appreciate it. And yeah, I'm sure we'll talk here soon enough. So.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Eric. Thanks a lot, everyone.